I'm an influencer, and my iPhone filmed the most terrifying Bigfoot encounter ever caught in Yellowstone. I hiked 9 miles into the backcountry to shoot a single video, unaware of the horrifying creature already out there waiting for us. What my camera proves about the shape Bigfoot wore to get close to us is the most disturbing thing you will ever see. My name is Paige, and I used to make my living pointing a camera at myself in beautiful places. Around 40,000 people followed me to watch me hike into the parts of Yellowstone most visitors never see. And that is exactly why my boyfriend Cody and guide Russ, a backcountry guide with 20 years on those trails, took us 3 days off the boardwalks and into the real thing. I have not posted a single thing since we came out of there. The only record of what happened is what lives on my phone, because somewhere in that footage is the exact moment Bigfoot stopped being a campfire story people tell in Yellowstone and became the thing that killed the 2 men I trusted to bring me home. I am only able to do this once, so please stay with all of it. It is the second evening that everything turns on, so that is where I will start you. We were camped 9 miles from the nearest road on the lip of a thermal basin Russ knew, one of those places where the ground steams in the cold and the whole meadow smells like a struck match, and I had my phone out filming the steam going gold in the last light because it looked like another planet. Earlier that afternoon, Russ had crouched over a patch of mud at the edge of a hot spring and gone quiet, and I have the clip of what he was looking at, a single track pressed deep into the crust, longer than his boot, and his hand laid end to end, 5 clear toes, and a heel that no bear leaves. He did not say the word Bigfoot out loud. He just took a photo of it with his own phone, stood up, and told us we would be moving camp at first light, and something in how flatly he said it put a cold hand on the back of my neck. We did not make it to first light before it came back. That is the clip where you first hear it, and it is the one I still cannot play with the sound up. Not a roar, nothing like the movies. A long, hollow knock of wood on wood out of the tree line behind us, and then a second knock answering it from clear across the basin, back and forth, patient, like 2 things talking over our heads about us. It went on for a long time, that call and answer, drifting slowly around the meadow. And even then, some part of me understood that whatever was making it wanted us to hear it, wanted us to know it was out there and that it could be in more than one place at once. I filmed the black tree line the whole time, and the phone caught nothing but my own breathing and those 2 hollow knocks trading back and forth. And the sound by itself is enough. Anyone who has spent real time in bear country will tell you that an animal does not announce itself like that. Only something that has no reason to be afraid of you does. Russ went still in a way I have never seen a grown man go still. He told us in a whisper to get in the tent and kill every light, because in 20 years he had heard knocking like that exactly twice, and both times it had meant Bigfoot was close, and that there was more than one. Nobody slept. My phone battery became the only clock I trusted, and I sat in the dark and watched it slide from 60% to 40% while something walked slow circles around our tent. You can hear it on the audio if you turn it all the way up, a patient crunch of frost that never once hurries, going around and around, stopping, starting again, always a little closer on each pass. I tried to send a message out, tried to start a live stream, anything, and the phone just sat there with no bars at all, no signal 9 miles deep, a glowing rectangle that could see everything and reach no one. That was the first time it truly landed on me that whatever Bigfoot was doing out there in the dark, there was not a single person on Earth who could get to us before it decided to. Twice that night, the tent wall pushed in against my back, slow and deliberate, where something the size of a door leaned its weight on the outside and held it there, feeling the shape of us through the fabric. Both times I bit down on my own arm to keep silent and waited until it lifted away. On the second one, Cody panicked and thumbed his headlamp on for half a second. Pure reflex, and in that half a second, the beam threw a shadow up the tent wall from something standing outside, a hunched shape far too tall and far too broad to have any ordinary name, and then the light was gone, and so was the shape. None of us said it. We did not have to. We all understood that Bigfoot was standing over our tent in the dark, and that the only reason we were still breathing was that it had not yet decided it wanted us to stop. The last thing that happened before dawn is the part I understand now and did not then. Somewhere in the worst hour of the dark, out past the tent, a voice said my name in Cody's voice, soft and close, from a direction Cody was not, because Cody was pressed against my other side, with his own hand clamped over his mouth. It said my name twice, and then it said his name in my voice, and then it went quiet. In the morning, I told myself I had drifted off for a second and dreamed it, because the other option did not fit inside anything I believed about the world. Bigfoot does not learn your voice on the first night and hand it back to you in the dark, except I have the audio, and it is on there, my own name and my boyfriend's voice with 10 feet of freezing air between the tent and whatever said it. And it is the first proof on the whole recording of the thing about this Bigfoot that should scare you more than its size ever could. The second the sky went from black to gray, Russ made the call for all of us. We were breaking camp and walking out fast and light. No breakfast, no talking, and we were not stopping until we hit the trailhead. Except the way out was wrong. I have the clip of Russ standing on a low rise with his paper map, turning it one way and then the other, and I filmed the exact second his face changed without knowing what I was filming. The trail we had walked in on was not there, not grown over, not lost under snow, simply gone, and the long ridge that should have sat on our left hand now sat on our right. Russ said a thing I have turned over every day since, that it was as if the whole mountain had been turned around in the night while we slept. He still did not say Bigfoot. He did not need to. Something had spent the dark hours making certain we could not leave, and now it was morning, and we were somehow deeper in than we had started. We tried 3 ways out, and the mountain refused all 3. Every time Russ picked a bearing and we walked it, we came up on something that turned us back. A hot spring venting steam across the only gap, a wall of fallen timber too high to climb, and once our own boot prints from an hour before crossing the trail ahead of us, in ground we had never set foot on. Every time we turned, I caught it on the phone, a half-second too late. A dark shape easing back behind a trunk at the edge of the frame, gone before the lens could focus, always uphill of us, always standing between us and the north. I know now that Bigfoot was never lost out there with us. It was closing doors, one after another, walking us down in a slow spiral toward the basin, and by the time the fog came boiling up off the hot ground and swallowed the last of our choices, it had put us exactly where it wanted us, and it had not so much as laid a finger on any of us yet. That is when the ranger walked out of the steam. We had dropped back toward the basin looking for anything Russ could use to fix our position, and the whole meadow was drowned in it. Sulfur fog rolling off the hot ground so thick I could not see 20 feet, and a shape just resolved out of the white and came toward us. A park ranger, the flat brim hat, the gray and green, a badge catching what little light there was, walking easy and calm like a man who had every right to be that far from a road at dawn. He lifted one hand in a slow, tired wave, the way rangers do, and told us we looked like folks who could use a way out of here. His voice was warm, his uniform was perfect, down to the pin and the patch and the worn leather of his boots. There was not one single thing about him, to the eye or to the ear, that told a soul to run. I have never in my life been so relieved to see another person. Cody actually laughed out loud. I lifted the phone and started filming him coming toward us, because even after that night, my broken reflex was that this was the happy ending, the rescue, the part of the video where everything turns out fine. I was so busy scanning the tree line behind him for Bigfoot that it never once occurred to me to look hard at the man walking out of the fog. He told us his name, and I did not catch it, and I have gone back to that one clip more than any other trying to read it off the badge on his chest. But the steam is always sliding across it at the wrong moment, every single time, as if the footage itself does not want me to know. He said there was a patrol cabin a couple of miles down the basin with a radio and a service road behind it, and that he would walk us there himself. Cody was already following. But Russ did not loosen up even a little, and when I watch it back now, I can see exactly why. Because the ranger left no prints. We were all 4 of us sinking to the ankle in that wet thermal mud, and yet when I scrubbed the footage frame by frame, only 3 sets of tracks ever come out the far side of the soft ground. I had spent 2 days failing to get one clean shot of Bigfoot in those trees, and here I was holding the steadiest footage of my life of the thing walking 10 feet in front of me, and I still could not see it for what it was. There is one more thing on those clips that I did not catch until my 3rd time through, and it is the detail that finally stopped me sleeping. When the ranger turned his head toward my phone, his eyes threw the light back, not the way a person's eyes catch a flash, that small red pinprick. His eyes lit up flat and green and enormous in the dark, edge to edge, the exact eye shine you get when a trail camera catches a big animal at night, the same glow I had spent 2 days praying to catch out in those trees. It only shows up on the footage. Standing right there in the fog, I saw a tired ranger's ordinary face, but the phone and the flash and the lens saw an animal looking back, and they saw it every single time the light touched him. My camera knew what was walking us down that basin a full day before I would let myself know it, and it kept trying to tell me, one frame at a time, the same way it had been trying to show me Bigfoot since the first night. The ranger walked us away from the light. I did not catch it because I did not know that country, but Russ did, and you can hear it start in his voice on the audio, the careful evenness a calm man puts on when he is trying not to set off a panic. The brightening sky was to the north. The road was to the north. The ranger kept us bearing south and west, downhill, deeper into the basin, where the steam thickened and the ground softened and the smell stopped being sulfur and became something warm and animal underneath it. The exact animal smell of the Bigfoot that had leaned on our tent in the dark. Russ finally said it flat out, that the cabin the ranger was describing had burned to its foundation years ago, that he had stood on the site himself, that there was no radio anywhere down there, and the ranger only smiled and kept walking and said that a lot of things people are sure are gone are still right where they left them. I have that on camera, and it is the most frightening sentence in 9 miles of footage. Then the ranger started knowing things. He knew Cody's name before Cody had said a word. He knew we had come in from the north trailhead and camped on the basin edge. And then he turned his head and looked straight into my lens, straight through the screen at me, and told me that 40,000 people were going to want to see how this one ended. I have never said that number out loud in my life. It is not written on my public page anywhere. On the footage, my hand starts shaking so hard the picture smears, and that is the first moment the animal part of me understood what Russ had understood back in the fog, that this was not a man and that no help was coming, because the thing offering the help was the thing we needed the help from. I could not shake the thought that the Bigfoot we had run from all night and the ranger walking us down into the steam were somehow the same, no matter how insane it sounded, and I told myself I was cracking. I would not have my proof until the very last thing my phone ever filmed. Russ dropped back beside me then, while the ranger's attention was on Cody, and he did something I keep on the footage and keep coming back to. He did not look at me. He kept his eyes forward on the back of that gray and green uniform, and barely moving his mouth, he told me to keep the phone running no matter what happened, to keep it pointed at the ranger, and to be ready to run downhill and not stop for anything. Then he said the last full sentence I ever heard out of him, that in 20 years in this park, he had learned every ranger's face by name, and that he had never once seen this one. He had known since the fog. He had walked us this far anyway, because the only thing more dangerous than following a fake ranger down a mountain was letting it see that you had figured out it was fake. Out in the trees, far off, Bigfoot knocked once, and the ranger did not so much as turn his head at a sound that had emptied all the blood out of the rest of us, and I did not understand yet why a man in that uniform would not flinch. By then, the basin had us, and this is the part you have to understand about how it walked 3 grown people to their deaths out in the open. You cannot run across a Yellowstone thermal basin, not in fog, not ever. The ground is a thin crust, and under the crust is water hot enough to cook the meat off your bones in the time it takes to fall, and the only safe path through is a line you cannot see and would never find without a guide. People die this way in this park in broad daylight, on marked boardwalks, one wrong step off the planks into water that looks like a postcard. Out here in the fog with no boardwalk and no daylight, the whole basin was one long trap that did not need Bigfoot's help to close. Russ was the reason we had come this far alive, and the ranger had walked us straight into the one kind of country where a single wrong step ends you, where a person who tried to bolt in a straight line would be dead before the 3rd stride. Bigfoot had not herded us toward the trees, where we might have lost it in the dark. It had herded us out into the open, onto ground that would do its killing for it if we ran. Russ stopped walking. I have this whole stretch, and I still cannot make myself watch all of it. He stepped in between the ranger and the 2 of us, and he said we were finished, that we were going north to the road right now, Bigfoot or no Bigfoot, with or without this man's blessing. And he told Cody to take my hand and start moving back the way we had come. And the ranger's voice, when it answered, was still perfectly calm and perfectly friendly, except it came out layered, 2 voices trying to pass through one throat at the same time, and it told Russ that north was where the others were waiting. That was the word it chose, others. Russ did not argue with a thing that talked like that. He just turned to shove us up the slope, and without meaning to, I lifted the phone one last time on him. I got exactly one clear frame of the ranger moving. One, and in that frame, he is already halfway to Russ, covering 15 feet of open ground in a single stride that no man's legs will make, and no bear's will either. The exact impossible motion I had spent 2 days trying and failing to catch out in those trees. Then my phone is pointed down at the mud because I had already started running, and all I have from the next few seconds is the audio, and I am not going to describe for you the sound Russ made. I will only tell you that it did not last very long, and that the whole time it was happening, the ranger's calm voice never once stopped talking to Cody and me, never rose, never strained, telling us it was all right and to come back, so that the recording carries Russ dying and the ranger soothing us layered over each other in the same breath. I have tried to separate those two tracks with software to prove the voice and the killing were not the same source. They will not separate. They are one signal on the file, one thing making both sounds. And that is the closest thing to proof I have of what I am telling you, short of the last frame. Whatever Bigfoot is, it can grieve you and reassure you in the very same second, out of the very same throat. There were two of us left, Cody and me, climbing a way through steam so thick I could not see his face from a foot off, and the basin would not let us hurry. Somewhere back in the white, the ranger came after us at a walk, never rushing, because it knew it did not have to, and it called the whole way in Russ's voice now, telling us Russ was fine and just up ahead, telling us the road was close, using a dead man's voice to steer the living ones. It had Russ down to every gravel edge of him, and it kept getting the words just slightly wrong, kept telling us things the real Russ would have bitten his tongue off before saying that we should hurry, that we should split up, that Cody should run on ahead where I could not see him. The voice was Russ exactly. The advice was Bigfoot. Every time I stopped believing it, a wood knock would crack out of the fog on our left or our right and turn us. And in the middle of all that terror, I caught one thing I could not let myself finish. The knocks out in the steam and the ranger's voice at our backs never once came at the same moment. One always went quiet before the other began. I would not do the math on what that meant about how many Bigfoot were really out there. My phone was about to do it for me. Then it took Cody's voice, too. We were maybe 100 feet from where the pines should have been when Cody's voice called to me out of the fog on my left, telling me he had found the trail, telling me to come that way. At the exact moment the real Cody was crushing my hand on my right and had not opened his mouth. I felt him go rigid beside me. Bigfoot had done to him what it had done to Russ, learned him and kept him, and now it could wear him whenever it wanted. And the worst part was watching Cody's face as he understood in real time that his own voice was already out in the dark working against us, that some piece of him had been taken while he was still alive to hear it used. I had the phone up, and it caught both of them on the audio at once, the Cody breathing next to me and the Cody calling from the steam, two of the same voice with only one of them attached to a living person. That is the moment I stopped trusting anything I could hear in that basin and started trusting only what the screen would let me see. Cody almost stepped into a pool. That is on the footage too, the flash lighting up a flat sheet of water where he was about to plant his foot, and I hauled him back by the collar a half second before boiling ground took his leg. You can hear the hiss on the footage where the toe of his boot broke the surface film of that pool, and you can hear me not scream, because by then I had already learned the rule of that basin, that screaming did nothing but tell the thing behind us exactly where in the fog we were standing. We stood there, shaking on a spine of dry crust, no wider than a sidewalk, a steaming pool falling away on both sides, and behind us the ranger's borrowed voice was closing in, and that was where I grabbed Cody and told him the truth. I told him the ranger was not real, that we could not follow the voice, that the thing behind us was the same Bigfoot that had circled our tent all night. To his eyes and his ears, a park ranger was calling us toward a road, and he looked at me like the fear had finally broken something loose in my head. So I turned the phone around and made him look. I had been filming back over my shoulder the whole climb, and there on the little screen, lit flat and white by the flash, the shape coming through the steam behind us was not the shape of a man. For 1 second, before the fog swallowed it again, my phone showed us both a thing far too tall and far too wide, wearing the smeared gray suggestion of a ranger's hat, and Cody made a sound I had never heard out of him in 3 years together. And at last he ran. It is the cruelest thing on the whole recording that it took my camera to make him believe me, and that believing me is the only reason he was running when Bigfoot finally decided it was done walking behind us. We almost reached the trees. I need you to know that, because I let myself believe it for about 9 seconds. The ground firmed up under our boots, and the black line of the pines rose up out of the fog ahead, and I actually thought we were going to live. Then Cody was not next to me. There was no scream this time, and that was so much worse, only a short, wet sound and a change in the weight of the air, and when I spun with the phone, the flash caught Cody already 10 feet off the ground, held up in the fog by something I still could not fully see, his eyes finding mine for 1 second before the light lost him. 3 years I had with him, and the last of it was that 1 second, his face in a phone flash, upside down, and 10 feet in the air, already knowing. Then the ranger's calm voice came down at me out of the dark from up where Cody was hanging and told me to hold still, that I was the one it wanted to finish with, because I was the one holding the camera. I did not hold still. I ran for the trees, and behind me I heard Bigfoot let Cody's body drop into the mud. I went down at the edge of the tree line, and the phone came up in my hands on its own the way it had 100 times that trip, and that is how I caught the frame. If you have seen any piece of this footage anywhere, you have seen this one frame, because it is the only one that matters, and it is the frame the entire Bigfoot community has been fighting over ever since. The ranger was gone. Where he had been standing at the lip of the basin, lit from behind by the first hard light, coming over the eastern ridge, the uniform was coming apart, not tearing, sloughing, sliding off, while the shape underneath it stood up and up and up out of the man it had been pretending to be, shoulders spreading past anything a hat or a badge could ever have covered. And then there was no ranger left at all, and there was only Bigfoot. 9 feet of it, maybe more, the whole shape of the man gone in a single second. Dark, matted fur streaked pale with the mineral crust of the basin, arms that hung down past its knees, a chest crossed with old healed scars, and a face that was almost human in its shape, and nothing human at all in what sat behind the eyes. Steam poured off it in sheets, because it had been standing in scalding thermal ground the entire time, as though the heat that would kill any of us in seconds simply did not reach it. There is no blur on that frame, no fog drawn across it, no motion smear, no soft trick of the dawn light. It is the single clearest look at Bigfoot that has ever been recorded, the face I had spent 2 days begging those trees to show me, turned full down the slope into my lens at the exact moment I understood I had been walking beside it since sunrise. In that one held frame, every wrong thing finally lined up. The Bigfoot that circled our tent, the ranger who walked us into the steam, the thing that knew my name and my number and wore a dead man's voice, had never been two things, and had never once been hiding in the trees. It had been standing in the open the entire time, wearing the one shape it had learned we would walk toward instead of away from, because it had figured out something about people that no animal is ever supposed to know. We will run from a monster in the woods. We will follow a ranger anywhere. And then, in the last second before I moved, came the worst detail on the whole recording. The thing that had been the ranger, 9 feet of Bigfoot, steaming in the dawn light, lifted one enormous hand to the side of its own head, to the place where the brim of a hat would have sat, and touched it, the exact small habit the ranger had done a dozen times that morning whenever he was thinking. It was still wearing him on the inside, 9 feet tall and steaming in the dawn, and some part of that Bigfoot was still quietly practicing at being an ordinary man. And when it opened its mouth, what carried across that basin to me was not a roar. It was the ranger's calm, friendly voice, one more time, telling me that I still had a long way to go to reach the road, and that I should wait for it. Bigfoot was standing there in its own 9-foot body, inviting me to follow it home. That is the second my legs finally came back to life, and I turned and ran into the trees with the sound of a dead man's borrowed kindness coming after me through the steam. I do not remember the trees, and my phone does not either, because that frame of Bigfoot at the top of the basin is the last thing it ever recorded before the battery died, as though it had stayed alive for the one job it needed to do and had nothing left to spend after. A trail crew found me 2 drainages over around noon, with no voice left in my throat, and the dead phone locked so hard in both hands they had to work my fingers open one at a time. The real rangers walked that whole basin and could not find a single track anywhere in it, not one print, in ground that takes an impression like wet cement. 3 people went in and 1 came out, and the only thing that tells the truth about why is a single frame near the very end where the steam clears off the badge for 1/3 of a second, long enough that I finally read the name and looked it up. A ranger by that name walked into these exact basins alone a very long time ago and never came out, and they never found a track of him either. Bigfoot has had that uniform for a long time, and it has had a lot of practice being one of us. You have seen it now. You have seen the thing come apart out of that uniform with your own eyes. So the next time you are deep in Yellowstone and the trail runs out under your feet and a calm ranger comes walking out of the steam to lead you home, do not look at his face and do not listen to his voice. Look at the ground behind him and count how many sets of tracks come out the other side. Because Bigfoot is still up there, it still has the uniform, and it already knows that a frightened person will follow the one shape they were taught their whole life means safety every single time, right up until the trees.